So essentially, the inner critic or the negative self-talk, it is what it says. It's an internal voice of criticism. It can be demotivating, it can be debilitating, it can be destructive, right? And so if you're thinking about the things that you want to do, and again, if we go back to the job search, for instance, or if we want to change careers, and we're thinking about, okay, I want to do this, but you have that inner critic that says, oh, but you know what? Before you do that, you need to get more training. Before you do that, you need to get better clothes. Before you do that, you need to lose 10 pounds. Before you do that, you need to so on and so forth. And so that critic, it just goes and it goes. And as we continue to listen to it, then we're like, oh man, okay, maybe I just won't apply for that job. Or maybe I don't have, excuse me, what it takes to start that business I've been thinking about. Or maybe whatever the case may be. And it just keeps us from moving forward and chasing our dreams and really showing up for the life that we want to live. And even when we've had disappointments, it can like it'll say, I told you so, or you knew that was going to happen, but you didn't, right? And so you just have to keep showing up, even when it's challenging. But that negative self-talk will encourage you to not show up at all. And as I mentioned before, it feeds feelings of shame and fear that disconnect us from ourselves and from others. So when we're feeling shame, we tend to go in, right? And we tend to disconnect ourselves from our feelings because that is unpleasant. So remember, Laura mentioned that, she's good with feelings, but mostly the pleasant ones. That's a lot of us, right? Like we like those pleasant feelings. We like to feel happy. We like to feel joy. We like to feel peace. We like to feel calm. But if you were to look at a feelings wheel and you start looking at, I feel melancholy, I feel disappointment, I feel all of these other things that are considered negative, then we want to avoid those things. But when we avoid those things, we are disconnecting from ourselves, and that inner critic gets louder and louder and louder. And remember, our authentic self is kind and compassionate and is encouraging. It reminds us of our value and our worth in the world. The other thing to think about is that the inner critic is both a what and a who. More on that in a moment. Let's do a couple of more poll questions. And again, you can respond to the poll as it shows up, or you can put put your responses in the chat. But the questions are, when am I most inclined to fall into a negative self-talk cycle? Is it when I make a mistake or feel that I've failed at something? Or maybe if I'm receiving criticism from others? Or do I start comparing myself to others? And so then that's when I start feeling the negative self-talk cycle popping up, or the inner critic popping up. When I experience uncertainty or change. I don't know about you all, but I don't love change. And so for the longest time, I would, for instance, when we were moving this last time, I started packing months in advance. We were in an apartment and we were going to buy a house, and I had decided, oh, I just need to start preparing myself so that I can ease myself into the change. We didn't move for 6 months. And so there were boxes all over the apartment because I was trying to ease myself into change instead of just saying, you know what, it's going to happen when it happens and it will be fine, because it still is always fine, right? The other question is, in what areas of my life does the inner critic have the most impact? So is that in your personal and professional relationships, how you see yourself or your self-confidence? Is it in your career or your work performance or overall well-being? Maybe it's something else. But it's important to notice where the impact is, because that's when that awareness is what helps us better address the inner critic and diminish its impact on us overall.
Sherry, I can put what I put in the chat and what Daniela said for that last one.
Yes.
So I mentioned when I am stressed or I'm going after a big jump in my life, like pursuing a new opportunity, trying to try something new, that's when my inner self-critic tends to come out the most. And Daniela said, I feel like I could answer yes to all of those.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like a lot of us can feel like it feels like we could say yes to all of it, right? At some point or time, we experience those things in all the ways. And yes, when we're saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm about to make a big change. I'm about to do something really big." Your inner critic is like, "Whoa, whoa there. Whoa, whoa. What are we doing? What are we doing? Are you really prepared for this? Are you really ready for this? Do you have what it takes?" Like it says all of these things, and it can make us feel less excited, right? Like it can feel like, "Oh my goodness, well maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I need to sit down. Okay, I'm just going to go watch TV." And then you feel even more disappointed in yourself because it's like, oh, I just wasted time watching an hour of TV or 3 hours of TV, whatever, or doing something else instead of really focusing on what it is that I want. And I'm looking at, like, I see the poll results popped up here. When it said, in what area of my life does the inner critic have the most impact? Most people said their overall well-being. Yeah. And that's like where you get to that place of like it hits everything, right? It hits if I am not feeling confident about my body. It hits when I go to work and I submitted a project proposal and the boss or someone comes back and says, "Oh, well, you should have done this different," or "This could have been different." And we internalize those things. And sometimes the best thing that we can do is just say, "Okay, it was a critique, a criticism, it was a thing. How can I make this not about me and more about, okay, this is the work that I'm doing and this doesn't have anything to do with me as a person?" Because so often we take it personal and we're just like, "Oh, this makes me a bad person," but it doesn't make you a bad person. It's just a moment in time.